Come on, let's go.
Okay, let's get started. So welcome to this session. So we're going to talk about some Intune stuff and application deployment. So before we start, who actually likes... We're good? Yeah, you're good. Yeah, okay. We're just going to start now then. So who does use Intune and like it? Please raise your hands. A couple of hands. Okay. Did you notice how we're not raising our hands? So to be honest, we are a little bit biased on this topic. I'm not a huge fan of Intune, to be honest, but yeah, I have to work with it at my customers. So, and in the context of GO-EUC, we did a research about it just to see and prove how fantastic Intune is. So a little bit about me. My name is Ryan Versbijker. So I'm a Dutch guy, as you probably can hear from my accent. And this is me doing crazy stuff together with Lee because he got me into this shit and make a monster out of me in doing all kinds of exercising.
I mean, I don't think that's quite fair. It was obviously always there, right? He always could do it, just was being lazy. So
yeah, you motivated me. But so I'm an independent consultant. I help my customers apply primarily DevOps practices in EUC context. So I do a lot of stuff with DevOps, Terraform, infrastructure as code, stuff like that. And also do a lot of performance assessments. So analyzing user experience and making sure you can optimize your environment. So that's my main expertise. And I do that for a living. And on the side, we have GO-EUC that I founded a couple years ago, just for fun.
So I'm Lee Jeffries. I don't know what you did with the slides there. So I'm an independent consultant at the moment. I'm working for Login VSI as a senior solutions architect. I also work for other customers as well, and I get the wonders and the joys of working with Intune as well as lots of other types of products. I'm still one of those old school people that likes on-prem stuff, but I still do cloud stuff, and also part of GO-EUC, working with Ryan on some of that infrastructure as code, some of that automation, as well as coming up with some interesting topics. This was one of my ones to just test really how long does it take to deploy apps in Intune. So we're gonna talk to you, set the scene a little bit about what GO-EUC is. And then we'll talk about Intune, why it's important, how people use it. For only about 6 of you that were brave enough to put your hands up, you already know what it is, so we've got plenty of stuff to talk about.
Actually, I can tell a little bit more a background story regarding GO-EUC, because typically I'll ask like who knows GO-EUC and then do the default slides. But some people might not know that back in the days you had Project VRC. Who knows Project VRC? It was run by Ruben Spruit and Jeroen van der Kamp, 2 Dutch guys. And they did a lot of performance testing and they used VSI for that. And to be honest, I used to work for VSI and I was one of the guys actually running all the tests. So I really loved doing that. I loved that so much that I even set my alarm clock middle of the night to check the test results and ensure that Jeroen and Ruben can actually present content because the test data was valid. But I was so excited about those test results, I eventually also doing my own research and presenting at various events. And the moment I actually left VSI, I thought like, maybe I can do Project VRC, but then better. But what I really thought is like, I like actually to go out to different places and drink a lot of beer. Because that's, you can connect with people and enjoy a nice beer. So when I went for a job interview, I actually thought like, maybe that's not the best sales pitch for like, I want to have some funding to run GO-EUC so I can actually drink beer. So I came up with a phrase for like this. It's actually not my phrase. I just stole it from Neil Armstrong. But this is the sales pitch side for ensuring that the company will give you money in order to spin up an environment and you can do research. Well, it's for me just making sure I have content that I can present so I can drink beer together with Lee this afternoon. But so we started this at 2017. And in 2020, we actually formalized towards a non-profit because I departed from that company that actually helped me kickstart with GO-EUC. So we converted to a non-profit. And yeah, when you convert to a non-profit organization, you have to formalize. So therefore, we also created a mission statement, which is actually this is the official mission statement. So, but this is a little bit of a background story. So it's really truly about just doing the research because we love exploring the technologies and present that at events and go out and have fun. Sponsors. Oh, they didn't take the last slide. Actually, we had some great news on this slide.
Fire us now, right?
Yeah. This morning I updated actually the slide. So we have a new sponsor for GO-EUC. So Logen is the primary sponsor that helped us from when we started with a non-profit. But since this year we also have Control Up sponsor the GO-EUC. So we're very happy with those sponsors because we need some funding in order to do these kinds of researches, especially when we do them in the cloud.
Anyone from Control Up in the room? Great. So
But
their logo was there, right, guys?
Yeah.
It's between us.
Maybe we have to. You're editing the videos, right? Just add the Control Up in there.
Probably. Okay.
So one thing I want to do different also, if you compare to Project VRC, because also for Project VRC, it was a lot about regarding marketing and getting leads. I don't want to do that with GO-EUC. So we publish everything on the website. It's open. You can just use it and reference it, whatever you like. And there's no registration required. So I really can encourage just go to the websites and scan through the research. And also the content that we're going to present today, it's already on the website. So you can also read it up.
Yeah, so we publish every month.
We should publish.
We should publish every month. Sometimes the numbers don't stack up when we do some research, so sometimes it takes a little longer. But the sorts of topics that we're researching, and we're open, by the way, to suggestions from you guys as well. But what we've got here is SKU comparisons for Azure. You know, is it worth updating to the latest SKU? By the way, the answer is yes, always, unless it's really much more expensive. But we have some research about that. I will personally be testing the V6 SKUs, and I'll have that released probably by the end of this month. You're doing some research on
Windows 11.
There you go. So we'll have 2 lots of research published this month.
And there's also one from Mick regarding power output.
Yeah, that's a weird one, right? Depending on what Cypher suite you're using, how much power do you utilize? Could be interesting. Very analytical. But anyway, please take some time, go look at the website. There will be something useful there. If you've got an idea, ping it to us. We're open to whatever you want to suggest. Okay, so over to me then, Ryan. If I remember rightly, we might do a bit of to and fro during this presentation. But I actually can see the notes, so it's easier for me this time. So what's Intune, and why is Intune around? And whoever said this screen is tiny, it really is tiny. You need like a magnifying glass for this. So Intune is a cloud-based service for managing endpoint devices. I can't remember the exact date that it was built, but I had that somewhere in my notes. I can't read them on that. So a long time ago, it's been around for a while. But what it was originally, yeah, you have a look. What it was originally built for is to really manage mobile devices, to literally take those over, and it's grown and developed, as with the Windows OS, to be able to manage Windows operating systems as well. It makes sense, right? Because as part of the Microsoft ecosystem, things are generally shifting to the cloud. There's fewer and fewer on-prem deployments for managing these sorts of things, and it makes sense to have it in a central location. So Intune doesn't just do config management. There's other areas here as well, such as compliance, application deployment, and security settings in there as well. You've got a whole config catalog. So there's lots of things that you can do with Intune. The thing that we're focusing on today, though, is more around application delivery. From a why it matters in EUC. So SCCM has sort of developed a move to manage those Windows endpoints in business workplaces, and all of that has had to go somewhere. Does it make sense for Microsoft to maintain a desktop management tool and then have a cloud-based management solution? Probably not. So we've seen that move with feature parity heading in that direction, making it more flexible. Let's not forget things like autopilot that allows us to seamlessly set up endpoint devices. So we've sort of grown to be able to manage hybrid workplaces and really span and bridge that divide between legacy management and image builds to the way that we work now. The application delivery piece, however, maybe it's okay on physical endpoints for apps not to be delivered instantly. However, we also have grown, or the Microsoft portfolio has grown, to also include AVD and Windows 365. So we're sort of into the realms of, well, we have this solution that we've put all our apps in and we want to manage endpoint devices with, but now we've added this other service to fulfill for another part of the business, and we also need to deliver apps in that direction too. So we also considered some of that in this as well. So Ryan already asked it, who likes Intune? And only a few of you put your hands up there. How many of you use Intune? Okay, a lot more. Okay, so most of you don't like it then.
I see trends, yeah.
That's good, that's good. Over to you,
Yeah,
Ryan.
so if we look at the type of applications that are supported in Intune, you have your default application. So on the top, it's the Win32 application and the MSIs. But additionally, you also have the store apps, the line of business apps, and the MSIX. So Intune is there at least to have a wide range of supportability regarding to supporting the application installers in order to deliver those. And especially it should be easier also if you use MSIX for delivering the applications itself. Now, there are still things that you, when you import an application, in order to deliver those applications towards your users, can be user-based or device-based. So that's either depending a little bit on your strategy and what you prefer, but those are the two default options you have in order to deliver those apps towards the users. I didn't miss anything, right?
I don't think so.
I know. So if you look at the workflow in order to get an app into Intune, of course, you have your app unloaded and wrapped. Eventually, you will assign it to a specific group. There's a device sync in place and a policy refresh. So that means that it will sync up and get the information. And eventually, that will trigger an installer on the endpoint itself, where you target to that specific machine. And I think you created a nice overview of that.
I did indeed. Oh, I was being impatient.
So from an admin perspective, you will assign it, and there is a lot of stuff happening in the background on the Intune services itself. But eventually, the device will check in a cycle. And I think this is an important part you have to understand, that when you add an application, it's not pushed towards the devices, but the devices, it's syncing. So on a specific interval, and I think you have the interval in there in your notes somewhere, if you can read it, or not. But
Could be 30 minutes or longer.
yes.
Depending on specific schedules, yes.
But it will check with the Intune services, and then eventually it will trigger that installation. So it's really important to understand that because that will impact the application delivery.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. So, so there's two different group types in Entra/Azure. We have static groups and we have dynamic groups. So, tree and dog. Made sense to me in my head when I put these slides together. Both of these types of groups can be used for application deployments in Intune. However, static groups are like Active Directory groups. What you put in that group exists in that group, it's instant. Dynamic groups have an expression assigned to them, which then allows you to target items that will be included in that group. And that could be users or it could be devices. So if you update a dynamic group with a different expression, you have to wait for the back end of Azure to be able to evaluate that expression, go through your Entra ID, Azure AD directory, and you have to get it updated with all those items. So there is a little bit of a lead time in that working. And Ryan's going to tell you there's some sort of limit now, because I think that's what I've forgotten.
No, but it also applies to when you introduce new machines. So let's say you deploy a new machine with a new name that's going to be registered into Entra ID. It's going to take time in order to update that in the dynamic group. And I think the official update lifetime is 8 hours. And it's limited towards 5,000 dynamic groups. So there's a hard limitation, a hard cap into Entra ID, unless you create a support ticket with Microsoft.
There you go. Because you ran into this limitation before, right, Ryan?
Yeah, in large environments, you will eventually run in this limitation, yeah.
So how many of you are using Intune for application deployment? A lot of you. Okay, cool. It's good numbers.
Yeah, it is.
Good numbers.
Now, before we go into the results, I think it's important to mention, like, from a GO-EUC perspective, we also always want to apply a methodology to our testing. So what we're not going to do is do an application deployment and sit there with a stopwatch and then report those results, because it's not reliable. So also in regards to this specific research, it's always we start with thinking, okay, what we're trying to achieve, what point are we going to try to prove, and that's going to be the starting point of this research. Then we're going to identify, okay, which metrics are important to us. So in this case, it's regarding application delivery. So we need to have a clear methodology in order to get those timings, in order to prove our hypothesis. Then another important thing is that we want to be able to reproduce those results. So it needs to be repeated multiple times. Within GO-EUC, we always apply that we have a minimum of 10 results. So we repeat a scenario 10 times in order to, before we publish the results. And eventually we'll analyze all the results and make it presentable. And this also applies to this research. This is not just one single data point. We spend, at least Lee spent a lot of time in order to get the data and the results from this specific research.
Yeah, we must really love this, because typically a research of this size, where you collect that much data and then you analyze it, that's not a couple of hours work. That's like weeks worth of work, coming up with the idea, working out how you're going to do it, building a custom testing solution, gathering the data, analyzing it. I actually did this entire research using Windows 10, and then Ryan said, no, I think you should redo it with Windows 11. So this was probably more like 3 weeks, and I threw darts at his face in my office for a little while.
Sorry, Lee. So if you look at the specifications of this specific research, it was actually executed by Lee also in his environment. So in total, we had 8 on-prem virtual machines, which were hosted in your environment. And as you can see here, we tested with Windows 10, and eventually also, after I made the remark of the version as your research, we included Windows 11 to see the difference between both. We used also the static and dynamic groups, because we want to see the behavior of application delivery using both scenarios. And the most important part, what we've done for this research, we repeated the install and uninstallation of an application cycle. We triggered an Intune and assign it. It will just install the application, which in this case was, I think, the top application of the list, 7-zip.
Yep.
It's a small, easy application. And once we detect it's installed and have those timings, we'll uninstall it. Getting those timings, everything is created in PowerShell and using remote PowerShell in order to collect those information and store it in this case, CSV data.
Yeah, so these VMs were running on vSphere environment. They are hybrid joined machines, so both on Active Directory and Azure AD, Entra ID.
Running in a high performance mode, so they don't go into standby.
With all the power settings disabled. So nothing else is being done on these machines. They've been built identically via a scripted method. I think it was a Packer builder built, actually.
So this is eventually the result of the outcome of a CSV. So on top you will see the flow. So we'll trigger the assignment in Intune. We do that using the APIs. So this is all automated. So there's no interaction involved, only starting the tests. We'll monitor, at least in case of the group membership, how long it takes for static. Makes sense, but this is really important with the dynamic ones. And then we'll look into the machine in order to detect if the application is installed. So once it's installed, we'll log it into in the CSV with using the timestamps, and eventually we could analyze that in Excel or in Grafana. We love Grafana.
Well, we didn't do any analysis in Grafana for this one, but we do with the other research we do,
Yeah.
where it's not custom and it is standard. This CSV output is quite important because there's a highlighted bold line in this CSV. So you can see here the machine name is Windows 10-02. You can see we've got an iteration column there as well. We've got 0 because I'm using PowerShell loops, so 0 is actually 1. So loop 1, you can see as we ran through there, the timings based in milliseconds, elapsed time, for every action we actually performed. So we've got adding to the group, very quick, because this is a static group. You can see it's a static group test on the right. And you can see there we check for the application installation, 125 seconds, sorry, not milliseconds, seconds, 125 seconds, so a couple of minutes. We remove the machine from the group, and it checks to see if the app is uninstalled, and it uninstalls the app pretty quickly, right? So first time we install the app and uninstall the app, it's fine, it's pretty quick. The second time is where you've got that bold line. So I had a problem in the research. It's actually taken me too long to get a response. Sometimes more than 24 hours for Intune to then reinstall that app. So I said to the team, like, how do I do this? Like, what is a reasonable amount of time to wait for an app to be installed? So we sort of discussed and we agreed 8 hours is the maximum amount of time you should have to wait before an app is deployed to a device. So here,
which is basically a working day.
Basically a working day.
So you have to wait a working day for an app to be delivered.
So that's why it's 480 minutes, because that's 8 hours. So where we've got this, where we actually time out for the 8 hours, we move on, we check for an uninstall, we do all the same steps. So even though the app is not installed, we check, put it in the uninstall group, we check to see if the app's not there, and that'll be really fast because it never deployed. So that's accounted for. So that's our methodology, that's the way that we actually did it. As Ryan said, all automated, no hands-on in this, and we did this for both static and dynamic groups. So with dynamic groups, we used custom attribute in Azure AD on the machines. We put that into the test, and that's how it got added into the dynamic group. So let's take a look at the results. Do we have anything here? No, nothing here. Placeholder.
So this is the first analysis, and this is truly about the difference between the group update. So the orange one here is the static group. And as you can see, the static group is very consistent and very fast, which makes sense because we just add a device to it, and then we'll check if the device is added, and it's like almost instant. Now, with the dynamic group, there you see some fluctuation in there, but I would say that this is still very acceptable. However, there's one note here that the Intune and the Entra ID environment that we used here is a lab environment, which is really, really small. So we believe that if you have a larger environment with multiple devices, like hundreds of thousands devices, these timings might change. We're not 100% sure, but we think that will affect at least the updating of the dynamic groups. So that's an important thing that you need to take into account. But at least what we can prove with this is that, yes, if you use a dynamic group, it takes more time compared to a static group. So you need to take that into account when you use that.
Any questions on that? Everybody's cool? All right, cool.
Cool.
You remember?
I remember.
All right.
Now, as Lee already explained, like with the bold line, we experience some timeouts. So what you see here is the all the empty rows are basically timeouts, or the other way around.
The other way around.
Other way around.
Crosses your timeouts, yep.
Crosses are timeouts. Ah, check. Okay. Yeah. So every X is a timeout that we have in the test cycle. So that means that we have had the assignment of the application. We check if the application is installed, and we hit the time limit of 8 hours until we decide, okay, we have to move on. So we're going to repeat the cycle. And as you can see, it's all over the place.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, right, 10 iterations. So we do this 10 times for every machine. And you can see there on the left, we've got all of those 8 machines, the Windows 10 and Windows 11. And then we've got how many times we essentially skipped an app deployment. So for iteration 2, which is actually 1, none of the machines did what they were supposed to do. But then next time around, all the Windows 11 ones installed the app, but the Windows 10 ones didn't. And then we start to see a bit of a smattering of a different sort of pattern, but more detail. Is this me, is it?
Yes, it's you.
It's got your name on it, but that's fine. That's fine. I'm good. You want me to talk? I can talk. So the time taken to deploy an application, really hard to visualize this. Started to use line graphs and stuff. That doesn't work. So Ryan had to do some custom scripting on their website to add scatter graphs into it. This is the time it took to deploy an app in hours, based on every iteration. So iterations are at the bottom of the graph, and then we've got the time taken in hours. So you can actually see here, if we got to under 8 hours, it's not on there. Sorry, if we got to over 8 hours, it's not on there. So you can see we don't have all 8 machines as we run through this. Okay, so we've got some gaps. With the time being cumulative, however, so if we actually add up the 480 minutes, which is the 8-hour timeout, we get a more complete picture. And this is our timings for app deployments where it did actually work, or where it was cumulative, including the ones that failed. So you can actually see here, where we're just performing those same actions, we've got a maximum time for delivery of 38 hours. Which is not great, probably outside of the realms of acceptable, with an average time of 10 hours. So this is what we found. And based on these sorts of timings, and you're all sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is terrible, it can't really be that bad. We're getting there. It would make you feel a little bit like this, right? This guy has squeezed his head so much he's broken his glasses. So we needed to do something. We couldn't believe it's this bad. Like, no way.
We had some experience, though, but...
We had some experience, and the reason for this research is people posted on LinkedIn saying, hey, Intune's great. And I was like, is it? So that's why we did this research.
To be honest, it did reflect a little bit of my experience, but this was like an extreme take on it. But
so we extended it. Yeah, we could come out and say, Intune's terrible, look at this. But what do you need to do to make it work then? Because it can't be that bad. You cannot have all these companies using this on a day-to-day basis and it not deliver.
I know the solution to it.
Do you?
Yeah, hire an expert.
So we decided we'd make a change. What we were doing was using one application, which was 7-zip, and we're just performing actions, right? We're just taking machines in and out of groups. So we said, what happens if we do something to the application? Now, I never actually successfully got the API to upload a package directly to Intune. Oh my God, there's a number of steps in that, and it's really actually fairly tricky. But what I did do was just amend an application. So I took exactly the same application, added a line in that automation to just, every time it's done a full cycle of delivery, change the version number of the app. That's all I did. I didn't actually do anything to the app. You can also change the description or the name a little bit, does the same thing. And we got this. So we went from hours to minutes. Now, I don't know how you're all managing your applications in Intune. But what I'm essentially saying here is, if you job a package and add a letter or something to a description, it almost treats it like a new application, and then you get a much faster and more reliable delivery. Now, I don't know why it's like that. I'm sure there are reasons. But maybe a lot of you out there are thinking, hey, this is terrible and we can't do it. So once we did this, we moved from having that delivery time into hours to it being completely consistent across every test run, with a maximum time of 64 minutes to deployment and an average time of 40, which is entirely acceptable. Maybe not for VDI, but it is for desktop machines, for sure.
One thing that you also can conclude from this graph is that still at the first iteration, which in this case is 0, I think we really need to update that, by the way, but it's still the fastest. So when you introduce a new application, it will deliver fast, and once you update the application, it will still deliver it quite in an acceptable time, but it's not that fast as the first initial iteration.
Yeah, I think we have that somewhere in a slide. There's a reason for that when you build new machines. There's different sync cycles based on the state of the machine, because we found that out as well. That is documented. So, are these mine or yours? These are yours.
Are mine? Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, you're famous, Ryan, so you should. He hates that.
You see a turtle, so that means that it's slower. And in this case, the dynamic groups are slower than the and a little bit more unpredictable if you compare those to the static group. So I think I talk with a couple of Intune MVPs, and I noticed there's always a debate between where you should use a static group or dynamic group, and there's a huge favor for people that cheer on the dynamic groups, but a lot of say it's like they use static groups. So I actually use the dynamic groups at my customer, and we run into a lot of issues. And eventually we changed it towards the static groups, and we had a little bit more reliable and consistent results in order also with compliancy. So from my own experience, I would always recommend to use the static groups instead of the dynamic groups. And as we learned that when you change the package and update the package, like a version number, it will deploy faster.
So a couple of the myths around instant deployment timings. I talk to a lot of people on a daily basis around how they're going to build templates for VDI solutions, and some of them are using Intune. They're standing up a VM, and then they're waiting for apps to deploy to that VM. Other people do it slightly differently with some sort of scripted approach, but when a machine is built in Intune, there is a sync cycle for the agent. I think, and Jim, I don't know if you know it, but I'm sure you correct me if I'm wrong. It is every 15 minutes for the first hour, it's every 30 minutes for the next few hours, and then it's every hour for the next 2 hours, and then it's every 8 hours. That's the sync cycle for this sort of stuff.
He was not in, so I think it's correct.
Sweet. That's from memory, so that's good. So so there is a delay there, dependent on what state your machine is in. If it's a brand new machine, it's going to get apps quickly within that time period. After that time period, so bear that in mind whilst you're planning. Your apps really need to be delivered within 8 hours for them to be all there and present. Otherwise, you're just going to wait a little bit longer, potentially. Dynamic groups. So as Ryan mentioned, dependent on the size of your Entra ID directory and how many devices you've got in there. If you've got a dynamic group with some expression in there to target devices, then you may see a bigger delay for that group to update in the first place. I don't think it's going to be massive based on sort of the research we did. Yeah, there's not many machines in my tenant, probably about 20 or 30. That's not very big. So we need to do a bit more research on that. That is us just saying, hey, it may be, but we don't have the facts for that.
So we always say, like, without data, you're just another person with an opinion.
100%, yeah. The version increments, that made no sense to me, by the way, but that's the way it is. That's the behavior. And that's why we do this research, because People can say what they want until they've run a very analytical test on something, but the reason I love this stuff is because once you know how software behaves, you know how to implement it. You can read the docs as much as you like, you can use it, but unless you do something like this, you never quite know what it's going to end up to being like. So this was really good, because now I know every time, if I'm recommending application management to a client, I'm going to tell them, upload a new version of your app every single time. Never just job the existing one, just keep going with that. We did see a small difference, not that it matters now because no one's using Windows 10 anymore. We did see a slight difference in app delivery. As I was running the automation, sometimes the WinRM connection actually timed out on Windows 10. No particular reason for it, exactly the same config, dropped it, reconnected. So there was a difference in that sort of timing. Exactly the same scripts, exactly the same framework, but we couldn't explain it, and it wasn't really the key part of the research. So, plus it was literally like a very short disconnection.
Was it in favor of Windows 11?
Yes, Windows 11 was better, more stable. So that was a bit of a bonus. Where are we on time? No, 5 minutes. Oh, we've done all right, Ryan.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Upstairs, there's lovely cakes as well.
Oh, there's cakes.
Cakes, nice. Let's go to quickly then through this. You can read it. Cakes? No. I think it's really important when you have to manage expectations of your stakeholders, but also the stakeholders in this case are also the users. So they need, when you implement Intune or do the app delivery, make sure that your users understand that it's going to take time. There are cycles involved in order to go deliver the application. So communication in here is key in order to be successful basically with Intune, because it's just different behavior than you're probably used to.
So practical tips wise, use static groups where you can, because they're not massively more reliable, maybe, but they are more reliable, definitely. Use application updates to trigger or amend the application in order to trigger a quicker deployment. So they are practical tips. We've tested them, they work. The bigger picture for Intune. This is yours.
Ah, it's mine.
So we've talked about how bad Intune is.
Yeah. But we're just talking about a small part of Intune. Intune it's much wider range in regards to it. It serves more purposes. And eventually, I think a lot of companies are using Intune for compliance and security reasons as well. Ensuring to check if a device is compliant in order to determine also if you can access resources. So it's not just about the app delivery, it's a wider picture. So you should know that before you go with Intune. And there's the co-management with SCCM and the autopilot workflow. So I think the autopilot one is primarily used by a lot of companies in order to provision new machines and have that new onboarding experience.
So in summary, Intune is really powerful and app delivery is great. It might not always be as fast as you want it to be, but if you do it right, it's not that bad. And then work out how it is that you actually want to do things and work out what's right for you. It's always the customer that needs to decide how quickly they want things and what's going to work for them and what isn't. It might work, but now you know and you've got the facts, you'll be able to make that decision. One last piece, because we're missing a slide. Before we head into questions, just in case any of you had this, we gave this presentation on the cruise in Norway, and Simon Binder happened to sit in our session, who is an MVP for Intune, and he loves the thing.
It wasn't AVD Tech Fest though, because he had to present at Norway at the same time.
He presented at the same time as us in Norway. Was it in Norway? It was at AVD Tech Fest that he sat in the session. But he's going to help us revisit this research, because he gave us a number of suggestions. They were putting a filters on instead of using group membership. So assign the app to every machine and then use a filter and see if that makes any difference. And he said you can change the sync cycle. You can actually change the polling interval for Intune. It's a support request, so you could actually request that. I didn't know that, so that was good info. He had a number of other points, but I didn't write them all down. But we're going to get with him. He's going to join us as a affiliate to GO-EUC. So there are going to be people that can contribute to research, give us ideas, help share the knowledge, and then we will do the grunt work again to produce the research. So with that, there's our website. There's a link to the article if you want to read the article. There's your QR code, just in case. So take a picture now if you want to. And then we move on to questions. And Nigel's just going to slam the hammer down when we're done. Anyone have any questions? Go for it. Oh, Jim.
So
Your next
before you started cutting the time off at 8 hours, you said it was taking up to 24 hours?
Yeah, sometimes more.
What was the maximum time for app deployment that you saw before you gave up at 8?
38 hours, and then he phoned me up like, I'm going to stop this research because it was still not delivered.
Yeah, I basically said I won't be able to deliver it this month because it's going to take me too long to get the results. But it could be pretty lengthy, yeah.
It was over 38 hours.
Another question over here.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, you next. Caspar, you had your hand up slightly before Jim. He didn't see you, so...
I was going to suggest that the all devices with the assignment filter.
Yeah.
Someone smarter than I that need to do that first. I maybe consider using this. I just told you guys about the superseding stuff. You could include that as well to see what happens when we supersede an application.
Good point. I'm sure that was part of Simon's feedback as well, actually.
I think it was. I don't know.
Good suggestion. Sorry, sir. You next.
Did you try scheduled deployments? And if so, how close to the scheduled time?
Oh, that's a good one.
We have to
No.
write these down.
Scheduled deployments. No, we're going to look into that one. Actually, I like that idea, scheduled deployment.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing about this. We're not Intune experts. We should have caveated that. We use it, but we're not experts. You know what you know because you've delivered what you've delivered. But the feedback is great because we'll just revisit it, run it again. So scheduled deployments. Okay. We've got the framework now, so it's just a matter of amending that to fit these sorts of things in, and we can repeat the same work and get the same results.
Question at the back.
You mentioned there were hardware joins. Did you just arrange a join now?
No,
No.
not yet.
This is going to be a lot of work.
Everything sounds like work. Actually. It's
Yeah.
the thing.
That's okay. It's okay.
So one final question then.
Once we never got any failures once we changed the version of the app. It always deployed in under the 8-hour cutoff.
A rebuild of the entire machine, you mean? Okay. That should be an easy one, Lee.
Yeah.
We can automate that one.
It should be really quick based on the timings. It should be really fast if you rebuild the machine every time. In fact, I won't have to change the app version because the new machine always gets the quicker sync cycle. But yeah, it is something that could go in there.
Thank you very much for the feedback and more work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate.